Nurse Hannah Park stood at her station on the quiet medical deck of Outpost 7, checking inventory as she did every Tuesday. The outpost hung in space like a shining metal snowflake, rotating slowly at the edge of human territory. Through the viewport, distant stars twinkled against the blackness of space. 3 years at this post had taught Hannah to appreciate the calm days. Working at an interspecies medical facility meant dealing with different biologies, cultural taboos, and diplomatic sensitivities. Today seemed blissfully ordinary as she counted medicine vials and updated the system. The calm shattered when alarms blared throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed in the corridors. "All medical staff to emergency stations," announced the overhead system. "Incoming vessel with critical medical emergency." Hannah's fingers flew across her console, pulling up details. Her heart jumped when she saw the information. A damaged Varel ship requesting immediate medical assistance for a high-ranking passenger. Director Kim's voice came through her communicator. "Nurse Park, report to Bay 3 immediately. The patient is Ambassador Tay of the Varel High Council." Hannah grabbed her emergency kit and ran. The Varel were one of the most technologically advanced species humans had encountered. Tall, elegant beings, with translucent skin that shimmered with bioluminescence. They were also known for their complex social hierarchy and strict medical protocols. When she reached Bay 3, the medical team was already preparing equipment. Director Kim looked tense as he checked readouts. "The Varel ship reports the ambassador collapsed during their journey," he told Hannah. "They're 3 minutes out." "What's the ambassador's condition?" Hannah asked, pulling on medical gloves. "Unknown. They're being deliberately vague." Kim frowned. "Remember, the Varel have specific requirements about medical care for their officials. We may only be allowed to monitor." The docking alert sounded. Minutes later, 4 Varel rushed through the doors carrying a hovering stretcher. On it lay Ambassador Tay, his skin an alarming flat gray instead of its normal pearlescent glow. Hannah's medical training kicked in. She grabbed her scanner and aimed it at the ambassador's chest cavity where Varel kept their 2 primary hearts. "Both cardiac centers are failing," she said sharply. "We need to begin resuscitation procedures now." A tall Varel stepped forward, his skin flashing with stress patterns. "I am Mock, the ambassador's aide. You will not touch him. It is forbidden for non-Varel to make physical contact with council members. Our medical team will arrive in approximately 40 minutes. Director Kim raised his hands in a placating gesture. "We respect your protocols, but our scans indicate the ambassador's condition is critical." Hannah's scanner beeped urgently. "Director, his life signs are dropping rapidly. He won't survive 40 minutes. Mock stood firmly between them and the ambassador. "Our laws are absolute. The ambassador would rather perish than suffer the indignity of improper treatment." Hannah met Director Kim's eyes. She saw the conflict there. Respect diplomatic protocols or save a life? Hannah's scanner flashed red. 5 minutes until total system failure, she announced. After that, brain damage begins. Mock and 2 other Varel stood guard over their fallen leader, chittering in their native language. They began a ritual that involved waving glowing appendages over the ambassador, but performed no actual medical intervention. Hannah made her decision. She circled around the group, pretending to check equipment, then suddenly pushed past the surprised Varel and reached the ambassador. "Stop her!" Mock shrieked, but Hannah was already placing her hands on the ambassador's chest, carefully positioning them over the location of his primary heart. "I'm sorry," she said, beginning chest compressions modified for Varel physiology. "I took an oath to preserve life." The Varel aides tried to pull her away, but Director Kim and other human staff intervened, creating a barrier. "This is an outrage," Mock shouted, skin flashing bright patterns of distress. "You violate our most sacred laws." Hannah ignored them, focusing entirely on the patient. Varel anatomy was similar enough to humans that CPR could work, but different, enough to require modifications. She applied pressure carefully, monitoring the scanner readings with each compression. After 2 tense minutes, the scanner beeped differently. A faint glow returned to Ambassador Tay's skin. Primary cardiac function returning, Hana announced, relief flooding through her. He's stabilizing. As the ambassador's condition improved, the Veral's protests grew louder. Security officers had arrived, looking uncertain about the unfolding diplomatic incident. Director Kim approached Hana, his expression grim despite the medical success. "Nurse Park, I need you to step away now. The ambassador is stable enough to wait for the Veral medical team." As Hana backed away, Mock pointed at her, skin pulsing with anger. "This human has committed sacrilege against a council member. There will be severe consequences." Looking at the ambassador's slowly brightening skin, Hana knew she had done the right thing medically. But as Mock continued his tirade about violated protocols and diplomatic incidents, she also knew her career might be over. Hana sat in Director Kim's office with her back straight and hands folded in her lap. Only the small tremors in her fingers showed how upset she really was. The office was too warm and too small. The air recyclers hummed loudly in the silence. "Nurse Park, you are hereby suspended from all duties pending review," Director Kim said. His voice was heavy with regret. He placed her ID badge and medical scanner on the desk between them. "The Veral delegation has filed a formal diplomatic protest." "The ambassador would have died," Hana said quietly. "The scanner gave him less than 5 minutes. I had to act." Director Kim ran his hand through his gray hair. "That's not the point. The Veral have strict protocols about who can touch council members. You've created an interstellar incident. So I should have let him die?" Hana asked. "That would have been his people's choice to make," Kim replied. "Not yours." Hana looked down at her hands. The same hands that had just saved a life were now the cause of her punishment. She still had traces of the ambassador's shimmering skin cells on her medical gloves. "What happens now?" she asked. "Security will escort you to your quarters. You'll remain there until we sort this out." Kim couldn't meet her eyes. "Your medical credentials are temporarily revoked." Outside the office, Hana could hear raised voices. Through the small window in the door, she saw 2 groups forming in the corridor. On one side stood her human colleagues, faces tight with anger as they argued with the station security. On the other side, the tall, glowing forms of the Veral delegation gestured with their long arms, their skin flashing with patterns of outrage. Officer Jin arrived to escort her back to her quarters. As they walked through the medical bay, Hana's colleagues gave her supportive nods and touched her shoulder. The Veral they passed turned away, their skin dimming in disgust. "Most of us think you did the right thing," Officer Jin whispered as they walked. "But the politics of this are complicated." Hana's quarters were small but comfortable, a single room with a bed, desk, and tiny bathroom. The viewport showed the endless black of space with its distant stars. Once inside, the door locked with a soft click behind her. Now alone, Hana sank onto her bed. The adrenaline that had carried her through the emergency and the meeting with Director Kim drained away, leaving her exhausted. Was saving one life worth risking peace between humans and Veral? Her communications pad beeped. A message from her friend Nurse Lee had somehow gotten through despite the communication restrictions. "Ambassador Tay is stabilized," the message read. "But the Veral are saying you violated their most sacred laws. They're calling it biological desecration." Hana closed her eyes and leaned back against the wall. During her cultural training, she had learned that the Veral believed their council members contained the collective spirit of their people. By touching the ambassador without proper ritual, she had potentially tainted that spirit in their eyes. Hours passed. Hana paced her small room, replaying the events in her mind. Each time she came to the same conclusion: she couldn't have stood by and watched the ambassador die. Not when she had the skills to save him. The station's day cycle dimmed tonight. Hana couldn't sleep. She sat at her desk, writing her report of the incident in careful, precise language. If she was going to be judged, at least she would explain her medical reasoning clearly. Another message from Lee arrived. "Stations divided. Medical staff started a petition supporting you. But the Veral are demanding you be sent back to Earth for trial. Some say they might break the medical cooperation treaty over this." Hana's stomach tightened. The treaty had taken years to negotiate. It allowed human medical teams to work throughout this sector, helping dozens of species. If it was broken because of her actions, a soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. Officer Jin stood outside with a tray of food. "Thought you might be hungry," he said, sliding the tray through the small delivery slot. "And I wanted to let you know. There's a rumor that the Veral High Council has been notified. They're sending someone important." "To punish me?" Hana asked. Jin shrugged. "No one knows. But they're coming fast. Emergency jump speeds." After he left, Hana picked at her food without tasting it. Outside her window, the stars continued their cold, distant twinkling. Somewhere out there, a Veral ship was racing toward the station, carrying someone who might decide her fate. Her communications pad beeped again with an official message. "Remain in quarters. Veral medical representative arriving in approximately 30 minutes. Hana sat on the edge of her bed, back straight, hands folded in her lap. Whatever was coming, she would face it with dignity. She had sworn an oath to preserve life. Even if it cost her career, she couldn't regret saving the ambassador. Hana sat on her bed counting the minutes. 42, 43, 44. The silence in her quarters was broken only by the soft hum of the air system. She had heard nothing since the announcement about the Veral medical representative. A soft beep from her communications pad startled her. Another message from Lee had somehow gotten through the restrictions. "The famous Dr. Do just docked. He's the most renowned physician in the Veral Empire. Everyone's confused about why he's here." Hana stared at the message in disbelief. Dr. Do was legendary. Even human medical students studied his research on comparative xenobiology. Why would someone so important come for what was essentially a disciplinary matter? The station's announcement. System crackled to life. "Nurse Park, report to conference room A immediately." When Officer Jin arrived to escort her, his expression was puzzled. "Something strange is happening," he whispered as they walked. "The Veral who came with Dr. Do aren't acting hostile at all." The corridors were unusually busy. Staff members found excuses to be in the hallways, watching curiously as Hana passed. She kept her eyes forward, trying to maintain her dignity despite her wrinkled uniform and uncombed hair. Conference Room A was the largest meeting space on the station, usually reserved for diplomatic functions. When the door slid open, Hana was surprised to see not just Director Kim and some Veral officials, but also a crowd of medical staff from both species. At the center of the room stood Dr. Do. He was taller than most Veral, his translucent skin rippling with complex patterns of light that marked his high status. His three eyes, one central and two peripheral, swiveled independently, taking in everything at once. "Nurse Park," Director Kim said stiffly. "Dr. Do has requested this meeting after reviewing the incident." Hana stepped forward, heart pounding. She expected accusations, perhaps even a formal sentencing. Instead, Dr. Do's skin lit up with a pattern she had never seen before, warm gold and blue lights that moved in gentle waves. "Nurse Park," Dr. Do said, his translator converting his musical language to crisp English. "I have reviewed the medical logs and examined Ambassador Tay personally." The room was completely silent. Even the station's usual background noises seemed to have hushed. "What you performed," Dr. Do continued, his central eye fixed on her, "was Vir Kahi, the ancient touch of life. It is a technique lost to modern, Veral medicine for centuries." Hana blinked, trying to process his words. "I was just performing adapted CPR," she said simply. The lights beneath Dr. Do's skin pulsed brighter. "Yes, and in doing so, you accidentally rediscovered what our people have forgotten in our pursuit of technological advancement." He moved closer, towering over her. His skin now glowed with an intense blue light that reflected off her face. The B-Day, other Veral in the room began to murmur among themselves. "The 47 minutes between your suspension and my arrival is significant," Dr. Do said. "It is precisely the time after which cerebral revival becomes impossible for a Veral." Now Mock stepped forward, his earlier anger replaced by something that looked like shame. Dr. Doe has explained to us that in ancient times, before our medical technology advanced, we used direct physical interventions similar to what you performed. Dr. Doe nodded, the movement fluid and elegant. Our ancestors understood that sometimes quick action is more valuable than perfect protocol. This wisdom was recorded in our oldest medical text but has not been practiced for over 400 cycles. From his flowing robe, Dr. Doe produced a small device. It projected a three-dimensional image of ancient viral symbols and diagrams. Hannah recognized the positioning of hands that looked remarkably similar to what she had done instinctively. "But how did you know to come here?" Hannah asked. "And so quickly?" When Ambassador Tay's vital signs stabilized, the emergency signal reached not just the nearest viral medical ship, but also our central medical authority, Dr. Doe explained. The pattern of his recovery was distinctive. It matched ancient cases where Vir Kahi had been performed. I recognized it immediately. Director Kim looked stunned. So Nurse Park's intervention was correct, even by viral standards? By our oldest and most honored standards, yes, Dr. Doe confirmed. The biological desecration that Mock described is a modern concept, born from our growing reliance on technology and our increasing distance from physical contact with other species. Hannah noticed several of the viral touching their chest areas, a sign of respect she had learned about during her cultural training. "Ambassador Tay wishes to see you," Dr. Doe said. "He has awakened and learned what you did." Hannah felt a sudden flutter of anxiety. "Is he angry?" For the first time, Dr. Doe made a sound that the translator identified as laughter. "No, Nurse Park. He wishes to thank the person who had the courage to reach across species boundaries and cultural taboos to preserve life itself." As they left the conference room together, Hannah saw her fellow human staff exchanging relieved glances. What had begun as a potential diplomatic disaster had transformed into something unexpected, a bridge between past and present, between human and viral medical traditions. Dr. Doe's three eyes swiveled to study her face. "Sometimes," he said quietly, "it takes an outsider to remind us of who we once were." The large meeting hall on Outpost 7 was filled to capacity. Humans and viral stood side by side, an unusual sight given the tension of the past few days. The air felt heavy with expectation. Dr. Doe stood at the center of the room, his tall form commanding attention. Beside him sat Ambassador Tay in a floating medical chair. Though still weak, the ambassador's skin had regained much of its natural shimmer. Hannah stood off to the side, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. She had been brought here from her quarters without explanation. Director Kim had only told her to be ready for anything. "I have completed my examination of both Ambassador Tay and the medical records," Dr. Doe announced, his three eyes sweeping across the gathered crowd. "My conclusion may surprise many of you." The viral delegation shifted uncomfortably. Several of them still wouldn't look directly at Hannah. "Therefore," Dr. Doe continued, his skin pulsing with authoritative blue patterns, "Nurse Park's actions, while unorthodox, align with ancient viral medical wisdom. I propose not punishment but collaboration." A wave of murmurs swept through the crowd. Hannah felt her heart skip a beat. This was not at all what she had expected. Ambassador Tay raised a trembling hand, silencing the whispers. "I support this proposal," he said, his voice weak but clear. "My life was saved by human hands using viral wisdom forgotten by our own people." Director Kim stepped forward, looking shocked but relieved. "We would welcome such collaboration." Mock, who had been so outraged by Hannah's actions, now stood silent, his skin patterns showing confusion and uncertainty. "The technique Nurse Park used," Dr. Doe explained, "appears in our oldest medical texts. We called it Vir Kahi, the direct transfer of life energy through touch. As our technology advanced, we abandoned these practices, believing machines could do better than hands." Dr. Doe gestured to Hannah. "Please join us, Nurse Park." Hannah walked forward, aware of all eyes upon her. She stood tall, despite her racing heart. "What you did instinctively," Dr. Doe told her, "was adapt your human medical training to viral physiology in a way that perfectly mirrored our ancient healing arts. This is remarkable. 3 days later, Hana found herself in the medical lab, working directly with Dr. Doe. Her suspension had been formally lifted. Instead of punishment, she had been assigned as the human liaison to the newly formed Veral Medical contingent. "Press here like this," Dr. Doe instructed, guiding Hana's hands on a Veral Medical model. "Our secondary heart responds best to pressure that follows the light patterns visible on our skin." Hana nodded, carefully following his instructions, similar to how we follow the rhythm of the human heartbeat during CPR. "Exactly," Dr. Doe said. His skin glowed with approval. Our ancestors understood this connection between rhythm and life force. Somewhere along our path of progress, we forgot the wisdom of direct intervention. They worked long hours, documenting the intersection between human emergency techniques and ancient Veral practices. What began as one small project soon expanded. Other medical staff, both human and Veral, began to join their sessions. Even Mock eventually came to observe, though he remained quiet and kept his distance. "He's still processing," Dr. Doe explained when Hana asked about the aide's continued coldness. For conservatives like Mock, touch is sacred. The idea that an emergency might require breaking taboos is difficult to accept. One evening, as Hana was finishing her notes, Ambassador Tay visited the lab. He moved slowly but was clearly recovering well. "Nurse Park," he said, "I wanted to thank you privately for your courage." Hana bowed slightly, as was proper when addressing a Veral of his rank. "I was just doing my job, Ambassador." "No," he said, firmly. "You did more than your job. You crossed a boundary that even most Veral would not cross. And in doing so, you have helped us remember something important about ourselves." He gestured for her to sit across from him. "Our society's progress has come with costs," the ambassador continued. "We became so concerned with propriety and technology that we forgot the most basic truth. Sometimes living beings must touch one another to heal." The ambassador's words spread through the Veral community. Though some conservative factions still objected to Hana's actions, Ambassador Tay's support carried significant weight. He began giving speeches to his people about the importance of cultural exchange. "Sometimes," the ambassador told a gathering of Veral officials, "we must be touched by others to remember who we truly are." A month after the incident, the medical bay of Outpost 7 had been transformed. Where humans and Veral once worked separately, they now shared knowledge openly. Young Veral medical officers practiced ancient techniques alongside modern technology. Human medics learned the subtle signs of Veral physiology that their scanners might miss. "I never expected this outcome," Hana told Dr. Doe as they watched a mixed class of human and Veral medical trainees. "The best medicine," Dr. Doe replied, "like the best diplomacy, requires being open to unexpected outcomes." His skin glowed with a pattern that Hana now recognized as contentment. "Sometimes it takes a crisis to show us a better path forward." The Veral homeworld shone blue and silver, swirled with clouds that glowed from within. Hana Park had never imagined she would stand on its surface, let alone in the great hall of the Veral Council. The hall was enormous, with high ceilings that seemed to touch the sky. Thousands of Veral stood in circular patterns, their skin glowing, with different colors that showed their rank and profession. At the center stood the High Chancellor, the oldest and wisest of all Veral, his skin shimmering with patterns too complex for human eyes to fully appreciate. 6 months had passed since that day when Hana had broken protocol to save Ambassador Tay. 6 months that had changed everything. Hana smoothed down her formal uniform, feeling small among the tall, glowing Veral. Dr. Doe stood beside her, a friendly presence in this overwhelming place. "They are ready," Dr. Doe said softly. Hana stepped forward. Her heart beat fast in her chest. The silence in the great hall was complete. The past 6 months had been the busiest of Hana's life. Working with Dr. Doe, she had helped create a new, emergency medical technique that combined human CPR with ancient Veral healing practices. They had named it the Park Protocol. No one had expected the viral outbreak that hit 3 Veral colonies last month. The virus attacked the primary heart, first causing cardiac failure. Traditional viral medical technology couldn't respond fast enough, but the Park protocol could. Emergency teams trained in the technique had saved thousands of lives. Now Hana stood before the highest viral authority, no longer an outcast who had broken sacred rules, but an honored guest. Nurse Park, the High Chancellor's voice filled the hall. Your willing hands bridged our worlds when protocol would have built walls. The Viral Empire recognizes your contribution to our people. Two Viral in ceremonial robes approached, carrying a floating crystal sphere. It glowed with its own inner light, changing colors slowly like a living thing. The crystal sphere of Mekta, Dr. Doe whispered, our highest civilian honor. Only 17 have ever been awarded to non-Viral. As Hana accepted the sphere, its glow seemed to brighten. It was lighter than it looked, warm to the touch. She thought about how differently things might have ended. That day when she pushed past Mach to reach the dying ambassador, she had risked everything. She might have been sent back to Earth in disgrace. Instead, she stood here, honored by an entire civilization. Ambassador Tay stepped forward. He looked strong and healthy now, his skin glowing with vibrant colors. He had been promoted to High Ambassador for Human Relations, a new position created specifically for him. A single act of compassion accomplished what 100 diplomatic meetings could not. Ambassador Tay addressed the assembly. Nurse Park did not just save my life. She helped heal an empire grown rigid with tradition. The crowd's skin flashed with patterns of agreement. Even Mach, standing among the diplomatic corps, showed patterns of respect, where once there had been only outrage. What had begun as a medical collaboration had grown into something much larger. Human scientists now worked alongside Viral researchers. Cultural exchange programs had been established. The once isolated Viral were opening their borders and their minds. After the ceremony, Hana walked with Dr. Doe through the crystal gardens of the Viral capital. Did you ever imagine this outcome when you rushed to our station that day? She asked. Dr. Doe's skin rippled with what Hana now recognized as amusement. I came hoping to prevent a diplomatic disaster. I never imagined we would rediscover our past and change our future. 3 days later, Hana returned to Outpost 7. As her shuttle docked, she saw a familiar figure waiting. Director Kim stood at the airlock, his stern face now wearing a smile. Welcome back, Nurse Park, he said, eyeing the crystal sphere she carried. Or should I say, honored diplomat. They walked together through the familiar corridors of the station where it had all begun. Medical staff of both species nodded respectfully as she passed. You know, Director Kim said as they reached the viewport lounge, when I suspended you, I never imagined it would lead to all this. Through the large viewport, stars stretched into the distance. Somewhere out there, people who might once have been enemies were now friends and colleagues, all because of one moment, when compassion had outweighed protocol. Sometimes the right action looks wrong at first, Hana replied, watching the stars. But compassion speaks a universal language. The crystal sphere pulsed gently in her hands, its colors shifting like a heartbeat. In saving one life, she had changed countless others. Hana smiled at the thought that her simple human hands had helped bridge the gap between worlds.